The hall was alive with music, laughter, and the clinking of goblets. Golden light spilled from 1,000 candles, dancing on the gilded walls of the great sept of Baelor, where the feast of King Joffrey's wedding to Margaery Tyrell unfolded like a dream from a bard's tale. For most, it was a celebration of union between the crown and the Reach. But for a few, it was a theatre of secrets, whispered plans, and vengeance sharpened like a dagger hidden beneath silken sleeves. At the high table, Joffrey Baratheon sat on a throne-like chair, his cruel grin stretching wide as he mocked guests with the sharp tongue of a spoiled boy who fancied himself a god. He pointed at dwarves dressed as kings, laughed at their stumbling act, and spat wine on the floor when their clumsiness pleased him too much. His mother, Queen Cersei, watched with satisfaction, her eyes gleaming with that cold mix of pride and paranoia. The lioness was guarding her cub, unaware of the hunters closing in. But among the crowd sat a face that no one expected to see. Lord Eddard Stark of Winterfell, alive, though thought dead, his head supposedly spiked upon the Red Keep's walls years past. Rumour had claimed he was executed by Joffrey's command, yet here he was, disguised in plain sight, a grey beard longer, hair thinner, but those solemn northern eyes unchanged. Few noticed him, fewer dared speak to him, and those who did thought him nothing more than a weary northern bannerman come to witness a royal union. Ned had learned long ago that honour alone was a fool's shield in King's Landing. His survival had not been a matter of courage, but of chance. Varys had spared him, whisking him into the shadows when the sword was meant to fall. The spider had whispered that the realm still needed him, though the years since had taught Ned that what the realm needed most was justice, true and unforgiving. Tonight he meant to deliver it. At a quieter corner of the hall, Lady Olenna Tyrell sat like a spider in her own web, her sharp eyes missing nothing. She was a grandmotherly figure to some, a harmless rose withering on the stem. But Ned saw her for what she was, a thorn that pricked deep, cunning and dangerous. She had approached him weeks earlier, her words soft, but her meaning sharp. "Honour is sweet, Lord Stark," she had whispered in the gardens of the Red Keep. "But it doesn't feed your children, nor does it protect them from lions who sharpen their claws on your kin. You and I, we want the same thing. That boy on the throne is a plague. He must be cut out, root and stem." Ned had clenched his jaw, torn between the vows he once swore and the blood his family had spilled because of this cruel boy. Sansa, trapped in King's Landing as a hostage. Robb, betrayed and slaughtered at the Red Wedding. Catelyn gone, her body left to the river. All of it had Joffrey's shadow hanging over it, even if the blade itself came from elsewhere. Ned's honour told him kings were not to be murdered. But his heart, his father's heart, told him some justice could not be found in prayers, so he agreed. And now the night had come. Olenna passed him a goblet, her wrinkled hands steady, as if she were serving tea rather than treason. In its deep red wine, unseen to all, swirled the strangest justice the Seven had ever brewed. A drop of poison, subtle, swift and final. Ned Stark, who once stood in the throne room and begged for mercy, who once believed in truth and law, now carried death in his hand. His face was unreadable, carved from northern stone. He watched as Joffrey mocked Tyrion, as the boy king ordered a song mocking Ned's own downfall, his supposed beheading. Every note of that cruel tune was another nail in the coffin of Ned's honour. At last, the moment came. Ned rose, silent as snowfall, and walked the length of the hall. None questioned him. To most he was invisible, another guest from some minor house. He bowed before the king, the faintest twitch of his lips betraying the ghost of a smile. "Your Grace," he said, voice deep, gravelly from years in hiding. He offered the goblet. "A toast to the realm's prosperity." Joffrey, pleased by the deference, snatched it with a smug grin. "At last someone with manners," he sneered, casting a glance at Tyrion. He raised the cup high. "To me, the king of all." The hall roared with applause, oblivious to the storm about to break. Ned stepped back into the shadows, his heart pounding like a war drum. Olenna's eyes met his across the table, And in that silent exchange, they shared a secret, darker than any alliance could hold. The boy king drank deep, and the North waited for its justice. The music faltered first. A sour note struck from a harp, as if the gods themselves had plucked the wrong string. Then came the cough, sharp, small, but piercing through the laughter. Heads turned toward the high table where King Joffrey, still smirking, had paused mid-sip. Another cough, harsher, racked his thin chest. He waved a hand, dismissively, as if to tell them all it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. The boy's face flushed red, his smug grin twisting into confusion. Then fear. He coughed again, louder, wine spilling down his chin, staining his golden tunic like blood. Lannisters leapt to their feet. Tyrion stared, wide-eyed, frozen in disbelief. Cersei rose, her face contorting as she rushed to her son's side. The hall erupted into a storm of voices, cries of alarm, shouts for help. 100 lords and ladies surging forward, their finery rustling like leaves in a sudden gale. Joffrey staggered, clawing at his throat, gasping like a fish thrown on land. His eyes bulged, his lips turned purple. He tried to speak, but only a strangled gurgle escaped. The goblet clattered from his hand, rolling across the table, spilling the last drops of poisoned wine. Ned Stark stood in the shadows, watching the boy choke on his own cruelty. He had imagined this moment, but the reality was far more terrible. This was no swift strike of a sword. This was a child, king or no, dying in agony before the eyes of thousands. And yet Ned did not move. His face betrayed nothing, though his hand trembled at his side. He had chosen this. He had walked this path knowing there was no return. Olenna Tyrell sat calm amidst the storm, her expression the perfect mask of horror a grandmother should wear at such a sight. But her eyes flicked quick as a bird toward Ned just once. A glance of recognition, of shared guilt, of purpose. Help him! Gods, help him! Cersei shrieked, clutching her son as he collapsed into her arms, his small body convulsing. Jaime rushed from his seat, sword drawn though there was no enemy to strike. He pushed through the crowd, kneeling beside his sister, his golden hand useless, his eyes wild with panic. The masters rushed forward, fumbling with powders and tonics, but it was too late. Every breath Joffrey dragged was shorter, sharper, crueler. His nails raked bloody lines across his own throat as if he could claw the poison out. His eyes rolled back, then snapped forward, fixing on Tyrion, his uncle, before life drained from them. With one final ghastly rattle, King Joffrey Baratheon collapsed limp in Cersei's arms. The hall fell into stunned silence. Then came the screams. Cersei's wail split the air like a knife, a raw animal cry that echoed through the vaulted ceiling. She cradled her dead son, rocking him, her face twisted in grief and rage. Jaime held her shoulder, his jaw clenched so tight it seemed his teeth might crack. The lords and ladies recoiled, their whispers like a rising tide. Poison, murder, treason. Cersei's head snapped up, her eyes burning with fury. She pointed a trembling finger at Tyrion, who stood still as a stone, staring at the fallen king with shock written plain on his face. "You," she screamed. "You did this." "You've always hated him," Tyrion stammered. I did nothing." But the words were drowned out by shouts and accusations. Guards surged forward, seizing him, dragging him toward the center of the hall. Ned did not move. This was the moment he had dreaded and planned for alike. He knew the Lannisters would not look toward the true culprits. Not yet. Tyrion would serve as their scapegoat, their first quarry. That gave Ned and Olenna the space they needed, but guilt gnawed at him. He remembered Sansa, still trapped here, still innocent. He remembered the faces of his children lost. Would they look at him with the same horror Cersei now bore for Tyrion? He told himself this was justice, that Joffrey's death was the balance of scales, long tilted. Yet deep in his soul, Ned Stark knew he had crossed a line he could never retreat from. Around them, chaos reigned. Lords shouted for calm, ladies fainted, men drew blades, though no enemy stood revealed. The king was dead, poisoned in the heart of his own wedding feast. And every whisper, every suspicious glance was another spark to the fire that would soon engulf the realm. Olenna rose slowly, supported by her kin, her wrinkled face solemn. To any who looked, she was nothing more than a grieving grandmother, whose sweet granddaughter's life had just been plunged into peril. But her eyes, sharp and hidden beneath her veil, flicked again to Ned. She mouthed a single word, "Now." Ned slipped away, his cloak blending with the shadows of the pillars. No one noticed him go. All eyes were on the dead boy, the wailing queen, the accused dwarf. The wolf of Winterfell was a ghost in the hall, unseen, yet his presence lingered in the poisoned air. Outside, the bells of King's Landing began to toll, their mournful song carrying across the city. The king was dead, the lion's cub had fallen, and with him, the fragile peace that bound the seven kingdoms together began to unravel thread by thread. Ned Stark pulled his hood up against the night and whispered to himself, "Though no one heard, winter has come for the lions." The dungeons beneath the Red Keep were colder than the north in winter, yet they smelled of rot instead of snow. Torchlight flickered along damp stone walls as Tyrion Lannister sat hunched in his cell, his sharp wit dulled by despair. His nephew was dead, and the city roared with the news like wildfire racing through dry grass. Everywhere above, whispers turned to shouts. The imp killed the king. The imp poisoned his own blood. He knew better, of course. Tyrion despised Joffrey, but murder him in front of half the realm? It was too foolish even for him. Still, truth rarely mattered in King's Landing. Lies were coins, and Cersei spent them freely. Up above, the throne room echoed with Cersei's rage. "He did it! My brother murdered my son," she shouted, her voice breaking, her finger stabbing toward Tyrion, as if her will alone were enough to have him executed on the spot. Jaime tried to steady her, but grief made her iron unbending. The lords of the court watched with unease, knowing a queen's fury was dangerous, but a queen mother's grief was lethal. Across the hall, Olenna Tyrell played her part with expert subtlety. Her eyes brimmed with tears, her wrinkled hand clutching Margaery's tightly. "My sweet girl," she whispered loudly enough for nearby ears to catch. "You are blameless in this, yet they will look to you now with suspicion. You must endure." Her voice quivered like a woman broken by tragedy. None could guess that her quivering hand had once measured powders of poison in secret. But Olenna was not the only mask in the room. From the far end, half hidden among guards and courtiers, a man stood silent, hood drawn low. Ned Stark kept his eyes fixed on Tyrion, not out of pity, but calculation. The dwarf's arrest was the shield they needed. As long as Cersei's venom was aimed at her brother, no gaze would drift north to the quiet wolf who had returned from the dead. Still, his heart twisted. Tyrion was no friend, but neither was he deserving of such blame. Ned had seen the look in his eyes when Joffrey collapsed, shock, not satisfaction. A guilty man would not have worn that face, and though Ned had steeled himself for the price of vengeance, he found no joy in seeing another man bear the burden of his choice. The days that followed turned the Red Keep into a nest of suspicion. The bells tolled endlessly, mourning a king no one truly loved. Black banners hung heavy across the city, though the people whispered more than they wept. Few mourned Joffrey, yet all feared what came next. A king slain at his own wedding was not a tale to be forgotten. Tyrion's trial was set with unnatural speed. The small council gathered in grim silence, each member wary of the other. Mace Tyrell blustered about honor. Pycelle wheezed about treason, and Cersei pressed relentlessly for blood. Only Varys sat still, his eyes flicking from face to face, drinking in the storm with quiet satisfaction. Ned attended none of these councils, for he had no seat, no name to wield openly. He was a ghost, walking the passages few remembered, moving by night, meeting only with Olenna in whispers. They met in her chambers, where the air smelled of lavender and secrets. "He will hang," Olenna said bluntly, her voice stripped of its grandmotherly softness. "Cersei will see her brother's head roll before the week is out. That gives us cover, but it also makes the game more dangerous," Ned frowned. An innocent man takes the blame for what we've done. I find no comfort in that." She gave him a sharp look. "Comfort is for children. You wanted justice, Stark. Justice is never clean. Better the imp swing than the two of us." He turned away, the weight of her words pressing heavy on his shoulders. Justice. Once, that word had meant honor, truth, law. Now it meant poison, shadows, and lies. He wondered if Catelyn would know him anymore, if Robb would curse his name from beyond the grave. But then he thought of Sansa. He thought of her pale face, her quiet suffering under Joffrey's cruelty. He thought of the laughter when Joffrey had ordered his men to beat her. The memory hardened him. If Tyrion's death bought Sansa her freedom, then perhaps the gods would forgive. On the morning of the trial, the throne room filled once again, though its grandeur was muted by grief and fear. Cersei sat tall, her morning gown black as a raven's wing, her eyes like daggers. Jaime stood beside her, torn between loyalty and unease. Marguerite knelt nearby, veiled in sorrow, the picture of innocence, and Tyrion was brought forth in chains. "I am innocent," he declared, as his shackles clinked against the stone. "I did not kill my king. I did not kill my blood." His voice rang sharp, but few listened. Witness after witness came forth, Cersei's puppets, bought or cowed, each painting him darker than the last. From the shadows Ned watched, his jaw tight. The wolf within him whispered that this was wrong, that a Stark should not let another man die for his deeds. Yet the father within him whispered louder still, "Sansa lives. Keep her safe." When the verdict came, there was no surprise. Tyrion Lannister was declared guilty of regicide. The hall erupted in noise, some cheers, some protests, but all drowned out by Cersei's cruel satisfaction. Ned turned away before the sentence was spoken. He could not watch the lion's runt be cast to the headsman's blade. He walked the stone halls of the Red Keep, his steps heavy, the weight of his secret heavier still. That night, as the city settled into restless silence, Olenna's words returned to him. Justice is never clean. Ned Stark, once a man of honor, now carried the stain of a crime that had turned the realm on its head. And though his heart ached, he knew the game was not yet done. The boy king was dead, but another would rise, and with him the storm. The bells rang again, their iron tongues tolling through the city like a dirge that would never end. The boy king was dead, yet another waited in the wings. Tommen Baratheon, soft-faced, wide-eyed, meek as a lamb. He was everything Joffrey was not, and for that very reason he was far more dangerous. A weak king was a throne waiting for others to sit upon. In the Red Keep, Cersei wasted no time. Her grief for Joffrey had turned into a burning determination to mold Tommen into her weapon. She hovered over him like a shadow, her hand on his shoulder whenever he appeared before the lords. Jaime watched with quiet discomfort, though he said nothing. Marguerite Tyrell, still adorned in veils of mourning, pressed her claim gently, sweetly, reminding all that she had been betrothed to Joffrey, and that her bond with Tommen would secure the realm. It was a battle fought in whispers, glances, and soft words in dark chambers. And from the shadows, Ned Stark observed, he had not come south to play the game again. He had once lost his honor and nearly his life upon this board. Yet here he was, alive when the realm believed him dead, hiding in the walls of the castle like a ghost and moving his hand in secret. Every night he met Olenna Tyrell in hidden corners, their alliance built on the blood of the boy they had slain. "This is our moment," Olenna said one evening, her voice sharp, despite the fragile mask of age she wore. "The lioness will fight for her cub, but Tommen is no lion. He's a kitten, soft and pliable. My granddaughter can wrap him around her finger before Cersei even notices. And when she does, it will be too late." Ned frowned. "You play with crowns as if they were baubles. What do you truly want?" She smiled, thin and bitter. "The Reach safe, my house unchallenged. My granddaughter a queen." Her eyes flicked toward him, studying him like a hawk. "And you, Stark? What do you want truly?" He said nothing at first. Once the answer would have been simple: honor, justice, the safety of his family. But honor had been poisoned, justice twisted, and family torn apart. His children were scattered, some dead, some lost, one caged here in King's Landing like a bird with clipped wings. "Sansa," he said finally. The word left his lips like a prayer. "I want her safe, away from this place, away from them." Olenna's smile softened just a touch. "Then perhaps our wants are not so different. My rose on the throne, your wolf return to her pack. But first we must weather the storm. The lioness will not rest." The storm came swiftly. Tyrion, despite his protests, demanded trial by combat. Cersei smirked, confident that the mountain's brute strength would crush any chance the imp had. Ned listened from the shadows, sickened by the charade. Yet a part of him wondered, would Tyrion live? Would the gods give him an escape from the crime that was not his? The trial ended in blood. Oberyn Martell, the Red Viper, fought with fire and speed, nearly striking down the mountain. But pride betrayed him, and his head was crushed to pulp before the court. Tyrion's hope died with him. The verdict was sealed. Ned did not sleep that night. He walked the stone passages of the castle, each echo of his boots a reminder that he was a man out of place, out of time. He had chosen vengeance once, and now the ripples spread outward. Drowning men who were innocent, staining his hands further with blood he had not spilled, but had invited nonetheless. But the wolf in him whispered, "The North remembers." Joffrey was dead. Sansa might yet live. The path was cruel, but it was a path. In the weeks that followed, Tommen was crowned king. The ceremony was quieter, the bells more weary than triumphant. The boy sat upon the Iron Throne, his feet barely brushing the floor, his eyes wide with fear at the weight of the crown. Cersei stood tall beside him, a queen without title, but with all the power. Margaery curtsied sweetly, her every glance a thread binding her closer to the new king. The realm breathed but uneasily. The north stirred with rebellion still, the riverlands bled, and the stormlands whispered of vengeance. The boy on the throne could not hold them all. And in a hidden chamber, Ned and Olenna plotted still. "You must move carefully," Olenna warned, pouring wine she would not drink. "The lioness is looking for someone to blame. The imp is not enough. She knows there was more to it. She feels it, even if she cannot prove it. You must remain her ghost, Stark." Ned's jaw tightened. He had lived as a ghost for years, but how much longer could he? One night he stood by a narrow window staring north. The stars shone above the city, faint, distant, but real. Somewhere beyond those stars was Winterfell. The wind from the sea carried no snow, only salt and smoke. Yet he closed his eyes and pretended he could feel the cold of his homeland. "I will bring you home, Sansa," he whispered into the night. "I swear it." But vows, he knew, were fragile things in King's Landing. The game was far from over. The boy king was crowned, but the lioness prowled. The roses reached for sunlight, and the wolf lurked unseen. Soon the realm would learn that Joffrey's death had been but the first crack in the wall. The storm had only just begun. The days after Tommen's coronation were restless ones in the Red Keep. The air was thick with unease, as if the stones themselves held their breath. Guards doubled at every gate. Food tasters hovered by the royal table, and no goblet of wine passed to a queen or king without a trembling servant testing it first. The lioness prowled, restless, sleepless, her grief for Joffrey twisted into a hunger for vengeance. Cersei Lannister trusted no one, not her council, not her brother, not even her son. Her eyes moved like a hawk's, searching for weakness, for guilt, for treachery. Tyrion's trial and conviction had satisfied the court for now, but Cersei's instincts gnawed at her. She had always hated her younger brother, yet some part of her believed the web was wider. Joffrey had been poisoned at his own wedding feast. Such a plot required cleverness. Such cleverness was not Tyrion's alone. Her gaze turned often to the Tyrells. Margaery, sweet and smiling, lingered beside Tommen at every occasion, whispering to him, coaxing him to laugh, teaching him the ways of kindness. To most, she was a balm after Joffrey's cruelty, but to Cersei, she was a serpent coiling herself around the throne. And behind her, always, sat Olenna, harmless to those blinded by age, but to Cersei, a rival queen in all but name. Meanwhile, hidden in the cracks of the castle, Ned Stark watched and waited. His path and Olenna's were tangled now, bound by a secret darker than the black banners that still hung over the city. At night, when he moved unseen through the passages Varys had once shown him, Ned felt the weight of his choice more keenly than ever. Every whisper of suspicion that fell on the Tyrells was a step closer to him. One evening, he overheard a conversation in the Queen Mother's solar. Cersei's voice was sharp, bitter as wine turned sour. "You think me blind, Jaime? That girl and her rose of a grandmother had their claws in Joffrey from the start. Look at how swiftly they cling to Tommen now." Too swiftly. Too neatly, Jaime's reply was weary. "Olenna is old. Margaery is a girl. They seek power, yes, but not murder. Tyrion was convenient," Cersei spat. "But I know. Someone else put that poison in his cup. I will find them, Jaime. I will burn their house to ash if I must." Ned stepped back from the doorway, his chest tight. The lioness was sniffing close to the truth. If she pressed too far, if Olenna's mask slipped even once, the weight of suspicion might topple them both. But far more dangerous than Cersei's hunt was the girl Ned longed most to protect. Sansa Stark lived still as a guest prisoner in the Red Keep. Her every move watched, her every word measured. Yet grief and fear had sharpened her. She moved quieter now, spoke less, listened more. And one night, as she wandered the Godswood seeking some shred of peace, she saw him. He had not meant to reveal himself. He had stood too close to the heart-tree, hood lowered, watching the pale weirwood face as though it might whisper answers. But when she stepped into the clearing, the moonlight struck his profile just enough. Sansa froze. Her breath caught in her throat. The man looked older, wearier, but the shape of him was burned into her memory. The set of his jaw, the slope of his shoulders, the sadness in his eyes. "Father?" she whispered, her voice trembling, broken by hope and disbelief. Ned turned, and in that instant he knew the danger. If she cried out, if a guard appeared, their secret would unravel like old cloth. But he could not deny her, not here. Not now. He stepped forward, slow as a dream. "Sansa," he said softly, his voice roughened by years of silence. Her hands flew to her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. She rushed to him, clutching his cloak, her body shaking. "They said you were dead. They told me. They showed me your—" She broke off, sobbing into his chest. Ned held her, his own eyes burning, though no tears fell. "Hush now. I live, though the world must not know it. Do you understand? Not a word, not even to those you trust. The walls have ears, child. The lions will kill us both if they learn the truth." Sansa pulled back, her face pale but alight with something he had not seen in her since Winterfell. "Hope. Why are you here? Why not flee? Why not take me home?" His silence was heavy. How could he tell her of the poison, the pact, the blood he had spilled in shadows? How could he explain that vengeance had bound him tighter to this city than any chains? "Soon," he said instead. "I will find a way. I swear it." Her eyes searched his, as if to measure the truth of his promise. She nodded at last, though her hands trembled. "I will keep your secret." As she left the Godswood that night, Ned watched her go, pride and fear warring within him. She was stronger than he remembered, her girlhood carved away by cruelty. Yet her strength was dangerous too. Secrets weighed heavy, and even the gentlest soul could break beneath them. From the shadows of the trees, another pair of eyes watched. Varys stepped silently back into the dark, a faint smile on his lips. The spider had seen what no one else could. The wolf had returned, and now his daughter knew, and in King's Landing, no secret stayed buried for long. The spider had always thrived on secrets, but some were richer than gold. The sight of Eddard Stark alive in the Godswood, embracing his daughter, was a secret so sharp it could cut kingdoms in half. Varys moved silently through the hidden passages of the Red Keep that night, his soft shoes making no sound on the ancient stone. His mind spun with possibilities. Ned Stark alive meant hope for the North, fire for rebellion, and a dagger poised at the heart of the Lannisters. It also meant risk, a secret that dangerous could not be held too long without biting its keeper. By dawn he sat in his chambers, hands folded over his round belly, eyes heavy but gleaming. "A wolf walks in the lion's den," he murmured to himself. But does he still believe in honor, or has he learned to bite? Far above, Cersei was already tearing through the castle like a storm. Her grief was no longer loud, but it was deadly. She whispered to her guards, bribed servants, and pressed Pycelle for every scrap of alchemical trickery that might reveal poison. She had her suspicions, though no proof. To her, the Tyrells reeked of guilt. Margaery's sweetness tasted false, Olenna's concern too polished. "Do you not see, Jaime?" she hissed in her solar as her brother paced. "The roses bloom too quickly. My son's body is scarcely cold, and already Margaery has draped herself over Tommen like a shroud." Jaime frowned. She is playing her part. "The realm expects her to comfort him. The realm can hang," Cersei snapped. "It was their plot. I feel it in my bones. They killed Joffrey. They want the throne for themselves. And I will find the proof." Her eyes burned with such fury that even Jaime, who had faced battlefields soaked in blood, stepped back from her. Meanwhile, in her chambers, Olenna Tyrell weighed the lioness's suspicion with practiced calm. She did not flinch, she did not tremble, but she tightened her hold on her granddaughter. "You must tread carefully, child," she told Margaery as she brushed her hair by candlelight. "Cersei's claws are sharp. She will not let go of Tommen easily. Smile, be kind, but do not trust her with even a glance." Margaery nodded, though her brow furrowed. "Do you think she truly knows?" "She suspects," Olenna admitted, "but suspicion is not proof. Proof she cannot have. Yet in her heart she knew that if Cersei pressed hard enough, cracks might appear, and the one who shared her crime, the quiet wolf from the north, was a crack far deeper than any. Ned Stark himself walked the castle that night with a burden heavier than his own armor. He had sworn Sansa to silence, but her face haunted him. The hope in her eyes, the desperate need for rescue, burned in him like a brand. He wanted nothing more than to seize her hand, flee the city, and ride for Winterfell until his lungs gave out. But duty chained him still. He had taken part in a crime that bound him to Olenna, and together they had stirred a storm that was not yet finished. In the quiet of a hidden stairwell, he met Olenna once more. Her wrinkled face was stern, her words sharp as thorns. "You were careless, Stark," she said without preamble. "The girl saw you." Ned's hand tightened on the hilt of his sword. "She is my daughter. She will tell no one." "Children are not vaults," Olenna countered. "Secrets slip when tears fall. Do not fool yourself into thinking otherwise. If she breaks, we all burn." Her words cut deep, but Ned said nothing. He could not deny the truth. That same night, Sansa lay awake in her chamber, staring at the ceiling. Her father lived. He walked these same halls. She could feel the weight of it pressing against her chest. She wanted to run to him, to cling to him, to beg him to take her away. But she remembered his warning. The walls have ears, and indeed, the walls did. One of her maids, a pale girl with nervous hands, carried her secret to Littlefinger before the moon had set. Petyr Baelish listened with his familiar smirk, his mind already weaving. "So," he purred, stroking his trimmed beard, "the wolf has returned to the fold. How unexpected." He leaned back in his chair, eyes glittering. Secrets were the true coin of King's Landing, and this one was worth a kingdom. By the time the sun rose, 3 people knew Ned Stark lived who should not have: Varys, Littlefinger, and Sansa herself. Each carried that knowledge like a blade hidden beneath silk, and Cersei, though she did not yet know the truth, prowled closer every day. Her suspicions circled Olenna like a vulture over Carrion. It would not be long before she struck. In the Godswood, Ned knelt once more before the heart tree, its pale bark glowing in the torchlight. He whispered to it, as he had once whispered in Winterfell, "I have done what honor forbade. I have stained my hands for justice. But the cost grows heavier. Gods give me strength to see it through. For her. For Sansa." The wind rustled the red leaves above him, whispering like voices too old to name. But no answers came. Only the chill reminder that in King's Landing, even prayers could be poisoned. The wolf had revealed himself, And now the hunters began to circle. The city seemed quieter after Tommen's coronation, but it was the silence of wolves circling prey, not peace. Behind closed doors, the whispers grew sharper, hungrier, and among those whispers, Ned Stark's name now stirred again, though not aloud. Petter Baelish, ever the collector of dangerous truths, cradled the secret of Ned's survival like a jewel. He had always prided himself on turning knowledge into power, and this secret was no different. He imagined Catelyn's eyes if she had lived, the shock, the gratitude he could have twisted into devotion. Now her daughter stood in her place, fragile but growing sharper with each wound the world gave her. Petter's smirk deepened. With Sansa and with Ned, he could play a far grander game. That very night he found his way to her chamber under the guise of comfort. His tone was soft, his smile careful, his words cloaked in kindness. "You've been strong, my lady," he murmured as she sat pale by her window. "Stronger than most would ever guess. But I see the truth in your eyes. You carry something heavy, a secret." Sansa's breath caught. She turned her face away, but Peter leaned closer, lowering his voice until it was a silken thread. "I know, little dove," he whispered. "I know who you saw in the Godswood." Her head snapped around, eyes wide with terror. "No." He laid a finger gently against her lips. "Shh, do not fear. I would never betray him. Not to the lions, not to anyone. But you must understand, a secret like this can kill as easily as a blade. You need guidance, protection." His gaze lingered too long, warm in a way that made her shiver. She nodded quickly, desperate to end his probing. "You won't tell?" "Never," he said smoothly. "I only tell truths when they serve me. And this truth, it can serve us both." Sansa did not sleep that night. She curled beneath her blankets, clutching them to her chest, her mind racing. She had promised her father silence, but now Littlefinger knew. And if he knew, others would too. Secrets in King's Landing spread like fire. Elsewhere, Cersei sharpened her hunt. She prowled the halls, questioning servants, listening at doors, twisting every scrap of gossip into a weapon. When she summoned Pycelle, the old man shuffled in with scrolls and jars, his beard trembling. "The Strangler," he whispered hoarsely. "That is the poison most likely used, your grace. Rare, costly, comes from across the sea. A woman's weapon, delicate, precise." Cersei's eyes narrowed. "A woman's weapon, yes. And who better than that wrinkled viper from the Reach?" Her hatred of Olenna swelled like a tide. She pressed Jaime to act, but Jaime only frowned, torn between blood and reason. "You can't move against the Tyrells without proof. They are too powerful." Cersei slammed her goblet down, spilling wine across the table. "Proof be damned, I know. And I will drag the truth from their throats if I must. Meanwhile," Olenna counseled patience in hushed tones with Ned. They met once more in her chambers, her eyes sharper than any blade. "The lioness draws nearer," she said. "She circles, she smells the blood. If she tears too deep, she'll find more than she bargained for. We must tread carefully." Ned stood stiff as an ironwood post. "I never wished for this tangle. I wanted only justice," Olenna chuckled, bitter and low. "Justice? No, my lord. You wanted vengeance. And vengeance is a weed. It grows wild, choking all it touches." He turned away, but her words lingered. Was that what he had become? A weed choking the realm? Yet all these games, all these whispers, came down to the one who held his secret closest, Sansa. She moved through the days like a girl walking a rope above fire. At meals, she sat silent beside the Tyrells, listening as they spoke in measured tones, their eyes ever on Tommen. In the corridors, she felt the lioness's eyes upon her, searching for cracks. And in her dreams, she saw her father's face, tired, haunted yet alive. One evening she slipped into the Godswood again, heart pounding. He was there, waiting, cloaked in shadow. "Father," she breathed. "Sansa," he said, his voice heavy with weariness. He looked at her, really looked, and saw not the little girl he had left in Winterfell, but a young woman etched by sorrow. "You must be strong." "Stronger than I ever wished you to be," she nodded, tears shimmering. "I can be. But how long can we keep this secret? Littlefinger knows. And if he knows—" Ned's eyes darkened. Then the game grows more dangerous. He placed a hand on her shoulder, firm, steady. You must trust no one. Not him, not the roses, not the lions. Only your blood, only your name. She swallowed hard, clutching his hand as though it were the last solid thing in a world built of lies. In the distance, bells tolled again, heavy and mournful. A king was dead, another crowned, but the game had not ended. It had only grown sharper, and in its heart a wolf stirred, no longer content to watch from the shadows. The hunters drew closer, the net tightened, and Ned Stark knew that soon he would have to choose, remain a ghost or reveal himself, and risk the fire consuming them all. The Red Keep had never been so tense. Even the air seemed to bristle with suspicion, every corner whispering treachery. The lions prowled, the roses braced their thorns, and in the shadows a wolf waited unseen, but not for long. Cersei struck first. Her patience was gone, shredded by grief and wine. One morning, guards stormed the Tyrell chambers, seizing servants, overturning trunks, tearing apart feather mattresses in search of poison. Olenna sat calmly in her chair as if she'd been expecting it, her wrinkled hands folded over her cane. "You dishonor my house," she told the Queen Mother coolly. "You shame the Reach with these theatrics." But Cersei's eyes blazed. "You killed my son. You hid your venom in wine, and now you creep toward Tommen with your smiling granddaughter. I see your game, old woman." Margaery tried to protest, her sweet voice trembling with feigned innocence. "I would never—" "Silence!" Cersei snapped. "I will strip your roses from their thorns one by one until you confess." The hall erupted with shouts. Mace Tyrell bellowed his outrage. Lords argued. Jaime tried to calm his sister, but suspicion had already been sown. The city buzzed with talk of a Queen Mother at war with her allies. In the shadows above the chaos, Ned Stark watched. Every word Cersei spat brought danger closer to him. Olenna was iron, but even iron bent if struck often enough. If she broke, if she spoke his name, the wolf's ghost would be dragged into the open. That night, he met her once more. Olenna was pale but unshaken, her voice thin yet sharp. "The lioness circles closer. She will not rest until she finds blood. If I fall, Stark, the noose tightens around you as well." Ned's jaw clenched. "Then perhaps it is time I left this den. I should take Sansa and flee." She gave a bitter laugh. "And run where? The north is ashes. The riverlands bleed. Every road is watched, every ship weighed with spies. No, my lord. You chose this game when you lifted that cup. You cannot walk away now." Her words stung with truth. He had always dreamed of escape, of carrying Sansa north, but the snare was set too tightly. His choices had bound him to King's Landing's poison, and only blood would cut the cord. Meanwhile, Littlefinger tightened his own net. He toyed with Sansa in whispers, weaving promises of safety and freedom. "Your father cannot hide forever," he told her one evening, his voice a velvet trap. "Secrets rot in the dark. If you wish to save him, you must be clever. You must trust me." Sansa's heart twisted. She remembered her father's words, "Trust no one. Only your blood." But Littlefinger's smile was patient, his eyes kind in their deceitful way. And he was right about one thing. Her father's secret could not last. She felt it pressing down on her like a storm cloud ready to burst. That storm broke sooner than anyone expected. During a feast meant to calm the court, Cersei struck again, this time with venom sharper than wine. She stood before the lords, her voice ringing clear. "My son was murdered. The Tyrells feign innocence, but I will have justice. I demand confessions, and if they will not confess, I will root out every ally they have in this city until the truth is mine." Her eyes swept the hall, sharp as knives. For a heartbeat, they lingered on Sansa. Ned felt the blood drain from his face. Later that night, in the Godswood, father and daughter met again. The moonlight carved their faces in silver, sorrow heavy in their eyes. "She suspects," Ned said grimly. "Not just the roses, you too. She sees you as a piece in their game." Sansa's lips trembled. "What will she do?" He hesitated. Then for the first time, he let the mask fall. "If she learns the truth, that I live, that I helped poison her son, she will kill us both. And worse, she will not stop until the north itself is ashes. Sansa's tears fell, but she did not look away. Then let me bear it. Tell her it was me. She'll never believe I could. No. Ned gripped her shoulders, fierce as the winter wind. You are my blood, my hope. You must survive this, whatever comes. But even as he spoke, he knew survival was slipping through their fingers. The spider stirred in his web, weighing whether to reveal or conceal. Littlefinger sharpened his smile, ready to trade the wolf's secret for more power. And Cersei sharpened her claws, hungering for a name to blame. The wolf had lurked in the shadows long enough. Soon he would be dragged into the light. Ned Stark raised his eyes to the red leaves of the heart tree, whispering as if the gods might still hear him. If winter must fall here, let it fall on me. Spare her. Spare my child. But in King's Landing the gods were silent and the game showed no mercy. The hunters had scented the wolf. And this time honor would not save him.